All right, welcome to the Ember podcast, our first episode that we are officially filming today. I wanted to just thank Doomfett and Kai Sustren for jumping on to the podcast with us as our first official guests. We're going to be talking today about what we hope to see in Ashes, what we're excited for in Ashes, what pitfalls it needs to avoid to succeed, and then also how it can do that. You know, each of us have been playing MMOs now for years, and we know from hard experience exactly what pitfalls can bring down a game. Bless being the prime example most recently of that. All right, so guys, I just wanted to lead into this here. This is going to be kind of like a roundtable discussion, very much an open format. So what we're going to be kind of talking about first here is what we're excited to see about in Ashes of Creation. I know personally, for me, it's the node system, it's combat, it's having that meaningful conflict in the game, you know, having that drive the world consistently. Kai Sustren, why don't you lead into the next? What are you excited for in Ashes?
Honestly, if I had to kind of put it into a sort of category system of what I'd be excited for Ashes, the node system is definitely a big one. I think it's a unique system, and I think it's probably the biggest draw in for Ashes of Creation because I've never personally seen anything like it done before in a game. And the sort of way it's supposed to live of its own accord and breathe and adapt to its environment based on what the players do and what the players decide. Like a living, breathing world is what it's something they're trying to create. And that, in my opinion, is a very beautiful goal that they're trying to make, and I want to see it happen. And the second big thing, honestly, that I'm really excited about Ashes of Creation is the studio itself. And the way that Steven is so passionate about his game and making his game a fun game for everyone who plays, and the time he's putting into it and the effort. And I truly believe that he believes they will not allow this game to fail because they put too much of who they are into this game. And I want to see that kind of commitment, that kind of energy from developers in video games again these days, because the more and more we go along, the more and more we see AAA developers just simply not doing that or not taking responsibility for their actions, or simply, oh, you know, this broke, this is messed up, it's someone else's fault, you know, it's not our fault.
Exactly.
And I want to see that kind of thing become mainstream again.
I agree.
Completely agree. Doomfett, go ahead, man.
All right, so I'm on a little bit different pillar. I'm more of the guy who, you know, I'm really excited to see, but I mean, it leads into all the systems that they've been talking about, like y'all have been saying about the node system, is just group content and what it means to be a group, a guild, a party, you know, the things that, you know, MMOs, you know, they start going to the casual player and the solo player. That's not what an MMO stands for. And it's just nice to see them how to pull in all these systems to try to pull people together, the crafting systems, the node systems, you know, whatever pretty much in the game is you want to be part of a guild. You want to be part of a group. You don't necessarily have to, but it just gives you that like you want to. I mean,
An incentive.
Yeah,
there you go. Sorry.
Exactly.
And then the second thing for me is PvP. I'm a big raider in WoW, but you know, PvP is gone in WoW, and I'm looking forward to, like you guys were saying, the meaningful PvP. I'm looking forward to going out there, fighting people, blowing up castles, blowing up metropolises. I mean, I don't want to be a tyrant, but you know, something to look forward to.
Right. I mean, so that's one of the things about this world that excites me the most, honestly. It's just that chance to be able to tear down the world that you've built up, that chance to work with other people to make that happen and do that. You know, there's going to be so much in this game, like you said, that forces you kind of work with other players, which most MMOs today, like you were saying, you know, is very much single player games. You know, you can do the entire game by yourself. You know, maybe the raids you have to have, you know, someone to play with, but even then you don't need like your own guild to do that with. You can technically do it with a random group. You know, that really shouldn't be the way that MMOs are. And that's personally, like you said, it's one of the reasons I'm excited about this game as well. What I would say is, as far as progression paths, you know, that's also another thing I'm super hyped for about this game. There's so many different progression paths for so many different things. It just allows for a very large depth of things for you to do and for you to accomplish. But it's also something that you can't necessarily accomplish everything. You have to be able to focus and hone your skills on one thing to be good at it. If you try to do that whole route of, basically you do everything and anything under the sun, you're not going to be that effective, right? It's kind of the way they built this.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just kind of go into the next part here then, as far as pitfalls, because there's definitely a million and one things I can say I'm excited for about this game, but unfortunately for each of us, I'm guessing we've each been burned multiple times. I could say like Star Wars Galaxies, that's the first huge disappointment that I ever had.
It's funny you bring that up, because that was the first MMO I played, and I couldn't tell you if it burned me or not, because I was like in 5th grade or something like that when I first picked it up. It was fun, but I had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah. I just remember one day I was an animal tamer, and the next day there's 9 professions and there's Jedi everywhere. I was just like, what in the world happened to this game? It's a completely different game at this point. But it's something that has to do with how developers see the world. It's all about money, and it's all about where can I get that next buck. And for the developers at SOE, they were looking at it very much in the eyes of how can I replicate what WoW did, because WoW came out just right after Star Wars Galaxies did at that time.
2005.
Yeah, I think 2004, 2005, right around there.
Right.
And so if you guys do you guys have any of your own major experiences kind of stuck out to you, as far as games that really kind of you're hoping for, maybe you had fun with for a little bit, but then it just went to crap?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in here because but like what Kaisa was saying earlier, like you were bringing up about the developers and money and these pay to win, cash shops. Pay for convenience is just another word for pay to win, which a lot of people just don't seem to understand. But what like Kaisa was saying was like Steven is looking into this. He knows what the community, I can't say he knows what the community wants, but he has a general idea of how to make it successful and put it in the right direction, and then take that feedback. But he can't, that's what I'm trying to get into, is he can't take everyone's feedback. He has to stand up for what he believes is the right thing. Every time I watch one of the live streams, there's a possibility it might be in the game, and it's never really a no unless it's like a really far out there question. And I just don't want them to dig a hole too deep, where I've seen like Star Wars: The Old Republic, they dug themselves too deep with just their storyline, which gave no end game. End game is a very important part of an MMO. Things like WildStar, one of my favorite MMOs, where they made it too difficult for listening to the community base that, oh, hey, we want a hard game because everyone was sick of WoW being too easy. And then new players jumped on it and they're like, well, I can't handle this. Well, it failed. On top of NCSoft, trying to push them forward to finish faster. And then we'll jump to the tyrant, World of Warcraft for me. Purely solo. I don't need to be in a guild. I joined a guild, just to try to have that feeling. It's not the same like it was back through Vanilla and Wrath, but I can go do looking for raid. I can go pug. I can, jump into an instant queue, all this static MMO stuff that they have for the game. Then they brought in things like the Mage Tower in Legion, where it's purely solo, but it's skill based. It was fun, but yet it's still solo. And these are just addresses like it looks promising from Ashes of Creation, and I'm just hoping.
To add on to what Doomfett was saying there, I think Steven has sort of a slight edge over some of these other developers from the get-go, simply because he played Arcade. And while Arcade, from what I have heard, I haven't played it myself, was an amazing game ruined by a terrible company with terrible decisions. But he played that game a lot, and he ran, I believe, the White Order. The White Order, I believe, the Lost Order, something like that. The top guild on his server. He ran that guild. He dominated all aspects of content. he has played what's considered one of the best MMOs out there, and he has done the best in that game, and he had grown to hate pay to win. So I think he has something of an idea of what the player base wants out of a game from the get-go.
Yeah.
I think he definitely needs to be able to listen to the player base coming in and to decide upon different opinions rather than being set in what he knew from arcades, because things are changing. But I think he has a good start that will put him slightly ahead of other companies that have just been making games for 20 years and kind of lost touch with their player base. But to add to the games that have burned me, I think the first, like, I grew up on RuneScape. I started RuneScape, and I learned the worst of what people were on RuneScape. I got scammed all the time. I lost my account. I was just a kid. I didn't know what I was doing. And then I went to Guild Wars 1, and Guild Wars 1 blew me away. And I spent years playing Guild Wars 1. And then Guild Wars 2 came out, and I was absolutely hyped for this game. I loved the idea of this game. Got on, started playing, and they changed it so dramatically that for me, it didn't feel like Guild Wars 1 anymore. And the biggest thing for me was the slap in the face on the lore. Like, you could spend years playing Guild Wars 1, finishing all the content, doing the stories, playing the expansion packs, and you go into the second game, and everything you did didn't mean a thing. Like, everything you accomplished in the game was worth almost nothing. And lore is really important for me. Lore is a big thing for me. And going to Guild Wars 2 and seeing, we sacrificed the entire dwarven race to wipe out a giant monster that was just, he was just a lieutenant to an even bigger, badder guy. We wiped out an entire race for nothing, effectively. Like, that was just a hard slap in my face. Like, why did we even do that? Because we didn't know better? It's like, And then,
wait, is that what happened in Skyrim? Is that why there are no dwarves?
That could be related. I don't know. We might find like a Bethesda ArenaNet crossover game in the future. That would be a kind of a fun game. But
interesting.
Revelations is probably my next big burn. We all saw what happened to Revelations. They went full pay to win in 2 weeks and pretty much killed their entire game off. And then Blessed Online was probably the last one. And I think the two people with me here have played Blessed Online, I believe, and a lot of the people who will probably view this have played Blessed Online. And seeing what the company did, pretty much cutting out all the content for the game, giving us the game and saying, good luck, we'll add that content over time, but half of it's going to be broken.
Yeah, exactly, man. So to me, like, there was an old school class of game designers and game creators back in like the early 90s, early 2000s, that, growing up, that's really what I got to play. Was these kind of like these guys getting together in like their basement, coming, creating a company out of nothing, building up something that was a passion to them. That's where you get a lot of really old school games that were just super fun back in the day. They didn't really care about all these extra schemes to get money out of you, all these extra things that really don't matter when it comes to gameplay. Like, I'd say most of the recent games that have come out have fallen into that pitfall of, we just want money. That's all we're here for. We just want your cash. So we're kind of trying to make the bare minimum of what we have to make in order to get that. One thing that you were saying earlier, Doomfett, was the basically the group finding in WoW. I think that's also something that's killed off a lot of MMOs, is that ability to just do whatever you want by yourself without ever having to really create any friends. It's something that Ashes has already taken a stand for and said, hey, in order to find a group for a dungeon, you have to physically travel to a tavern, group up with people there, go to the dungeon itself, and actually interact with people on the way. Like that on its own is a huge step that most games won't do, because they're afraid that it's going to be inconvenient to their customers and their customers may not like it. Which that fear is killing off a lot in the MMO industry. It's stopping innovation.
But that fear of what those companies are fearful of, those people are leaving because they're scared of that. Yeah, they're keeping their solo players, but those people who want that group content like we do, they're going to find their way over here. Maybe not here, but another game that is trying to do the exact same thing. And companies like Blizzard or Activision, whatever, NCSoft, all these big companies, all these AAA companies that, that produce MMOs left and right, or even the Eastern ones, the pay-to-wins like BDO and stuff like that. Like, they just need to realize the community base of the Western side, because the Eastern and the Western are totally different. We don't want over here. We don't want, you know, pay to win, pay for convenience, you know, all this, you know, stuff. We want to work for it. We want to meet people. We want to RP. I mean, I remember in World of Warcraft, I'm not a big RPer unless I'm doing D&D. And I mean, if I'm a dungeon master, I write the stories out completely. I mean, I like to do RP as a side note, but when I'm playing video games, not so much. But you know what? When I did do it in World of Warcraft for, you know, excuse my French, shits and giggles, it was fun. It was fun. I was interacting with people, and it wasn't the normal way I was doing it, but yet I was still interacting with people.
Yeah, exactly, man. That's also something that I'm super hyped for with this game, is that Steven, he's a D&D player. This whole world that he created is out of a D&D campaign. You know, that's how he got started with this, is just playing with his buddies, you know, saying, hey, this is something I've created, this world I've created. Let's role play through it. Let's create these storylines, these massive quest lines and tales, you know. And then he's translated that into an MMO. Like that's honestly, you can see the influence of that in some of the artwork design. You can see the influence in the dungeon designs. You know, how the dungeons aren't necessarily like a linear dungeon that you'd be able to find like the boss at the end, like you would with typically any other dungeon. It might be like a hidden room off to the side or something. Like the fact that there's gonna be one legendary item in the world, you know, that's
what I was about to bring up. I was like, that's where that legendary item is.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much that he's doing that's contrary to what the norm is, and it's bringing us back to that old school heart of gaming, which was just about having fun, going through an awesome story together, and then doing stuff together, which the gaming world and the gaming industry, I should say, not necessarily the players, has completely departed from at this point, which I don't understand that, you know, that mindset of, you know, why would you do that? You know, gaming is meant to be a fun experience together. Kai, what do you think, Ben?
I think the world that he's creating is definitely it's from his heart, from what he feels that gaming should be. And I like how he's getting creative with it and changing things around, like you mentioned as an example, the follow dungeon, boss at the very end. Just go to the dungeon, kill some minor bosses possibly, depending on what kind of game you're playing, and then kill a boss at the end, and bam, you're done. I like how he's changing up those kind of things. But for example, the legendary item you guys brought up, my opinion has always been something on the fence with that. I think it's a cool idea, but I also dislike the idea of like possible RNG or simply this person being able to dedicate 24 hours a day to go on this item, being able to get it, and this person decides to never log in again. Or, for example, decides to try to sell the account. I mean, RMT will definitely be a real thing. It's always a real thing, and every MMO we'll ever play, any game we'll ever see, there will always be RMT. You can do as much as you can to try to stop it, but there will always be RMT. And
I want to touch bases on that before you switch real quick. Like the whole legendary item thing, I agree. Like if it's a crafting legendary or, you know, a specific quest line legendary, whatever the case may be, and there's only one per server for that specific one, they should have rules implement saying, hey, which I believe that they do, if I'm not mistaken, if he's logged off for like, let's say X amount of time, well, guess what? It automatically gets revoked and someone else can do it. So it's there would be that item always on the server technically. Because I remember him I don't remember when he brought it up off the top of my head, but I remember him bringing up something that was in that same area where he was like, hey, someone asked a question, was like, hey, you know, if someone logs off, you know, what happens? Same thing with like guilds. If Sinbad decides to, you know, ditch us and not come back online, well, after so much amount of time, it's going to jump to a officer or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm hoping that they implement with the legendary rule, because, you know, hey, if that person found it and logged off, it's like World of Warcraft, you know. Back in vanilla, there was the AQ40 pre-patch where everyone was there PvPing, fighting, and whoever rang the gong got the black mount. Well, that person logged off, and guess what? No black mount no more. No, I mean, you don't see it at all.
I think those are definitely easy fixes. The RMT, like, basically being able to sell your account, that's something, like you said, that unfortunately there's no way around that. There's no real way you can prevent that other than, just monitoring websites that, basically sell those accounts. Realistically, that's something that's bound to happen at some point. Someone's going to want money. Hey, I got lucky, or I got, this quest item. But the fact is that you can do that in any game, the thing is that shouldn't prevent us from having, basically one of the best items in the game because we worked hard for it. If we spent more time than anyone else exploring, going through different quest lines, figuring out what could possibly lead us to one of these legendary items, and we earned that, that's something that, I could say with a point of pride, like, hey, I earned this. I got this achievement, because I went through something that no one else took the time to do, or I figured out some hidden riddle that led me to some clue that brought me to the underworld, and then I found it behind this big boss that I had to take my raid guild in to beat. Like, there's so much you can do with that aspect, that reward aspect. And it's not to say that there won't be multiple legendary items. There's just going to be very few of them too. And he did say some of them will time out. Some of them won't be around forever. Some may break. But the fact is, that should be the case in real life. That would be how it is, and that puts a real weight to having that item. The only time you'd want to bring it out is during one of the biggest fights, which should be, the defense of your home or something like that. Something that's decisive and changing the world. That's when you bring out that really epic item to help win it. To me, that's meaningful. That brings something that's substantive to the game.
True. And if I may play the devil's advocate in this case,
of course,
I do think that's it just sounds awesome. Honestly, I will not deny that. It sounds amazing, but it also fills me with jealousy that someone else might be able to get this before I can. And so, playing the devil's advocate, what about, this is just an idea, what about, say, this item is earnable by multiple people, but they have to go through this same level of grind as individual ones? Like, what if, you're trying to get a legendary sword, let's just use an example, and this legendary sword takes weeks of grinding, minimum, months of grinding possibly to get this sword, and someone got to this sword, and maybe he decided to share how he got to it, maybe not, but it will still take you months of grinding to get this sword to get on the same level of him. So I would say, well, it wouldn't be a unique legendary that is owned by one person on the map. Does that truly take away from its glory if it still takes the same amount of time as anyone else to get it? Same amount of work?
I think you can have that for certain items in the game. They did say that there will be some legendary items that will have multiples. But at the same time, when you read about the legendary stories, in say Lord of the Rings, right? When they talk about a sword, it's like the sword has its own personality. It's like it has its own presence in the game, or in that world, right? So to be able to make that something that can be the case for an MMO, where people can replicate it, they can basically redo those steps. They can do that. It just takes time. I don't think that's something that's necessarily as meaningful as, hey, this is the only one, and this is why it has a personality. This is why this sword matters, or this spear matters.
All right, I can agree with that.
Yeah. No, I mean, because if it goes down that road of, hey, it took X amount of mithril with X amount of steel with, so on and so forth, but yet you have to get it from this specific place and this specific place. Well, someone's going to throw a guide online, and then everyone's going to jump the gun and be like, well, this is best in slot, so we all have to go get it. And that is not what me, I know me as a person, I don't want in the game. I want diversity. I want immersion. I want people to bring what they have to the table, not, hey, that plus 10 sword over there is the best thing in the game. All right, you get it, you get it, you get it, you get it. Oh, you don't have it? You can't join us. Bye.
Yep. I mean, you should be one of the most epic mother effers of all time walking in with that legendary item. Everyone should be like, whoa, this guy's a real shit.
I remember when I first saw Thunder Fury in Vanilla WoW, and I was just staring at that guy, and I was screenshot, and I was like, Dad, what's this? He's like, oh no, what is that? And I was like, oh no, it has orange lettering for its name. And he's like, "Oh, that's a legendary." I was
Mhm.
like, I just stared at the guy for like hours, going, "You're a god."
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. But I also feel like to make something like that legitimate, like you could just do like a regular legendary weapon like you'd see from World of Warcraft, or you'd see from like Guild Wars 2, for example. But in those cases, everyone could get that kind of legendary. Everyone can get that if they put in the time. So I think
Mhm.
to compensate for the lack of everybody being able to get it, you really need to make it something special. Like it
Yeah.
can't be OP. It can't be OP gameplay wise, but it has to be beautiful in some sense of the word. Like maybe it'll give you a custom emote that you can use with it, or maybe the weapons can speak, or maybe they have a special power associated that can't be used in combat but can be used for a visual. Just I feel like they really have to test out the legendaries and be sure they are completely and utterly unique to the point that we've never seen like it before for that to actually work.
Me personally, sorry to
I
interrupt.
think that's fine.
I'm just gonna jump in on this. Me personally, as a player from MMOs, you know,
Can you guys
I
see my
see
dog's
the-
barking? So sorry.
no, it's all right. When I think of a legendary, I don't need it in my game. For me, I won't miss it. Yeah, it's cool to look at. Like I said, I look at a guy and I'd be like, wow, you're God. You went through all this hassle, or you got really lucky and you just look really badass. I'm not jealous. I'm not that type of person. I look at you, I'm like, congrats, dude, good for you. I'm gonna go on my merry way now. But me personally, to resolve conflict like this, I think there shouldn't be any legendaries. I think it should be not a equal footing, but where, you know, crafting is stuff like that. If I need a, you know, plus 10 intellect wand or grimoire or whatever the case may be, and I go out and search for all the pages for the grimoire and put it together and, you know, craft it, and that guy goes out there and mines all the mithril and, you know, makes a plus 10 sword, it's on equal footing, but yet it still has the meaning of, you know, I went out there and I built it, but mine's a grimoire, his is a sword. But he also comes in with like your racial augments and, you know, your class augments, and it still makes it that genuine and that special to you, and that's all that matters to me. All this legendary stuff, I mean, I could talk about it for days and how much, you know, it's cool. It's a cool idea, but I don't need it.
I guess if I could add, oh, sorry, bad.
It's okay. I was gonna say real quickly, for me, like I like that quest though. You know, that's something that motivates me to keep playing. It's something that gives me a lot of passion about a game. You know, for example, let's look at like Star Wars Galaxies back in the day. To become a Jedi in that, you had to go through so much before they nerfed it all. Like you saw a Jedi in game and you knew that was one of the best players in the game, like hands down, just because of what he had to go through in order to become that. You know, for myself, like I want that recognition from other people. You know, I want that kind of like, oh my God, this guy had to go through literally hundreds of hours just to be able to find these different quests, all these different riddles, to be able to get this one item. And I think, you know, to a certain point, those items should be a little bit OP. You know, it's a legendary item. It's something that is unique to the world. You're not to the point where it's game breaking by any means, but definitely it would give you an edge. But at the same time, it has to have that balance, you know, so there can't be a ton of them in the game. And at the same time, it should potentially break if you use it too much. You know, so having that meaningful risk and reward for having it, right? Like you were saying, though, when it comes to equal footing, I think that's also important. So I think there should also be other items in the game that, you know, like mythic items, let's say from like raids and so on, right? That you have to complete a raid so many different times to get these crafting materials to be able to make, you know, something that's really good out of it. You know, you don't just get like a lucky drop; you get materials that you have to bring to a crafter who then has, you know, participation in the world. You know, stuff like that is super important to the life of a game. And sorry, Kai, I didn't mean to cut you off either. What were you gonna say, man?
Oh, it's okay. I was just gonna add one more last point to the legendaries thing. When I saw people with those kind of things and other MMOs, when I saw them with those kind of cool weapons, it wasn't a jealousy like screw this guy, he beat me to it kind of deal. It's just a jealousy like I want this, you know, I want this, and it was because I wanted someone to look at me like the way I looked at them.
Yeah.
I didn't want that. I wanted it because it looked amazing. Like when I first saw Sunrise in Guild Wars 2, Sunrise was one of the legendary great swords you could get in the game. and it actually showed a sunrise, and it had like a glowing pattern that came out with the sword when you used it, with every skill you used, and I loved the look of this sword, and I grinded for it, and I grinded so much money to buy the precursor, and I grinded for the mats, and I did daily dungeons every single day, and I did this for I had like at least a month, 2 months, maybe 3 months, just to get all the mats required, because it took a huge amount of resources to build a legendary weapon. And the day that I finally built it, it was honestly probably one of the best days of my life in Guild Wars 2. It was probably one of the highlights of my experiences. I was completely ecstatic. You could hear me screaming like a little girl on TeamSpeak. It was ridiculous. But it was a good feeling that I was able to go for that and try to get that. And when I got that sword, I was just like it faded over time. It took time, but all that grind, all that work I put into it to get it, it was all worth it by the end because of how good it felt just to have that, to have it, you know, to be on the same footing with that person, to have that beautiful sword like he had, and just feel awesome using it, you know?
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to add.
Definitely, man. Go ahead and Doomfett. Were you going to say something?
Oh, well, I was just going to try to jump off this legendary topic, because what you just brought up of how, you know, saying how it was beautiful and stuff like that, I wanted to kind of go into an RP concern for the game.
Yeah.
You know, I understand that there's going to be things like taverns and these group get-togethers and stuff like that. But is there anything really more? I would really like to see, because, you know, when we always look at MMOs, we always think about the end game, PvE. Those guys are covered for sure. PvP, right. Those guys are covered for sure. The RP guys are always left behind. And, you know, they make a good part of the game. Like, if I go into a tavern, I want to see Buku's people, and they're, you know, chowing down on some hens and drinking mead, whatever the case may be. I just hope that they don't get left out in the game. And that is a big concern of mine for this game, just due to the fact is I understand that we have things that bring people in, and that's why, like, when I said I was like, I'm really looking forward to of all these systems to do it. But, you know, give like a guild options and like the UI, you know, make a contest or something like that for like who has the best looking house, or all right, let's have a costume contest, you know, or let's get together at this place and, you know, and do stuff together. Just to have like that RP aspect built into the game, that, you know, so those RP guilds have something to do as well, because they're not looking forward to, hey, there's a raid over there that, you know, that dragon needs 40 people to take it down. They really don't care about that. They just want to make themselves look really cool, go with their friends, and just role play, just full out role play as much as they can in game, because you know what, that's their thing, and you know, it's cool.
To add to that, Doomfett, I actually am a role player, and I've been a role player for 10 plus years. I can tell you some of the most important things to the roleplay community are, one, the ability to do fashion wars. Fashion wars is hugely important to roleplay community. They love being able to dress up, to glam, to look like whatever they want, like to have multiple glams for their multiple characters, or their different, if they're going out on a fancy dinner, or if they're going out adventuring, or if they're hanging out with a certain friend. Roleplayers love being able to show off their characters in the way they want to be showed off. Role players love not having a stupid character limit. Oh my god, some of the games I've seen of character limits have been just obscene with how short they are, how small they are. And some role players like doing just a couple sentences. Some like doing paragraphs, but you have to be able to adhere to both environments. And then the big third one, which I think is going to be the hardest for Ashes of Creation to accomplish, is griefing. Griefing role players has been a favorite pastime of PvPers in every open world PvP game I've ever seen. They love messing with them just because, I don't know, it's a fun thing to do. I don't fully understand it, but I mean, they love killing role players. They find them to be weird people, so they like to kill them. I don't know. And I think that's going to be the hardest thing for Intrepid Studios to be able to counter, is that role players possibly getting griefed, getting messed with, getting attacked just because they're role players. That's going to be the big one, I think.
Yeah, as far as that goes for the griefing, let's touch on that first. You know, they've introduced a pretty in-depth corruption system. I know a lot of players that are very hardcore PKers. You know, they actually are a little bit upset about that, just because they can't go willy-nilly killing everyone without losing all their stuff. You know, just because Exactly. I mean, like, come on, like, you want to ruin someone else's game because that makes it fun for you? Like, you shouldn't
Because
have
they
that
can't take
reward.
someone on their own size.
Exactly. So they do have that corruption system that is going to be very punitive towards, someone just coming up and griefing you, trying to just kill you again and again and again. Eventually they're
Yeah.
going to get to a point where their corruption is too much, and then a little chipmunk can come up and kick their butt. And then when that happens, you can take all their stuff. So, I mean, that's good, As far as, role playing in taverns, the tavern is essentially a central point in this game. It's a place where everyone can come to discuss strategy, to discuss, grouping up for events. It's a place where they can play tavern games, which is pretty awesome. They're actually going to have different tavern games
I'm
in there.
excited for those.
Oh,
yeah.
I know. I'm really hoping it's similar to The Witcher. That's going to be something I can see myself spending hours just having fun,
Dude,
after raid.
Gwent, yes.
Yeah, give me a quick description, because I own The Witcher 2. I just could not get into it. What is this tavern game that everyone can just, like? I hope it's like The Witcher. Like, I keep hearing this. Like, what is it?
There's technically 3 of them. Sinbad, if you want to list them all off, if you know them all.
I don't know them by heart.
So the first one is a card game called Gwent. And it's like a normal card game where you have to combine the strengths of your different cards, try to have the highest strength by the end of the round. And if you have a higher strength of card ratios compared to your opponent, you win that match.
So
And
Bazak?
you can. So what?
Is it like Bazak?
I have not played Bazak to be able to.
Not quite like Bazak. Bazak's a little bit different.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
And you can use like cards to destroy other cards, and you can put down copies of the same cards that have special abilities on them that actually double the points if they're next to one another. And there are cards you can use to revive other cards, and cards you can use to completely destroy the offensive capabilities of the enemy's cards. It's a pretty fun card game. It was actually a hugely successful thing in Witcher 3. The other 2 games that were big in the game was the street fighting, the brawling, where you get into like fisticuffs fighting matches with champions from the different towns. It was very popular. It was in several of the taverns throughout the game, and both Witcher 2 and Witcher 3, I believe. And it was just fun, and it was kind of challenging. Not too challenging, but kind of challenging. The third one I know about was the dice game from The Witcher 2. I don't remember what it was called, but basically you had to roll out dice, and you had to equal a certain score between one number or another number. You'd get between, like, if you had like between 7 and 12, you had to be about 9 or 8 in order to try to win. If they got closer than you did, they won. Or if you both were the same, it was like a tie. I don't remember the game very well, but those were the 3 big tavern games in which, and they were all very successful and very well liked.
Yeah, and that's something that I can see them implementing pretty well into this, because they've done something a little bit different in this game than most other MMOs have done. Is they've basically centralized everything around a communal place. It's very much, if you go back to Star Wars Galaxies, how like the cantinas, you used to have people just practicing their different trade crafts in there, such as like the entertainment. Yeah, and see, that being a centralized area, it does allow for a lot of people to actually interact, and from that is where you can then begin to RP in that tavern. Basically saying like, you could be in character, be like, hey, like, I just slayed this dragon over here, and you could throw back a beer and be like, this was the greatest day of my life. I got this dragon's tooth. Just like keep on, role playing it, right?
Well, you slayed the dragon? You mean you have slain the dragon? I'm just kidding.
Oh my god. Here we go.
Oh gosh. Yeah, but so I mean, as far as that goes, though, it does have a very heavy aspect that I think that will help a lot of our peers in this game, more so than most other games that don't necessarily encourage that group activity. The other part of it is, like you mentioned, character limits, Kai. So the character limits, I don't think they're going to necessarily have like a really hard limit on how many people you can create, how many different characters you can create, but
no, not like characters for writing, for typing.
Oh, okay.
Those kind of character limits, yes.
Yeah, that's a little strange. I don't think I've ran into many MMOs that have like a super big limit on that.
Bless was 90, and Revelations Online was 65.
I think WoW
that was ridiculous.
120. 120.
Yeah. I mean, usually I just use Discord nowadays.
Yeah.
Don't really pay attention anymore.
See, that's the other thing is going back into like looking at all these MMOs that we played in the past. Yeah, we had Ventrilo, we had TeamSpeak.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not TeamSpeak. There was one other one. I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah.
Mumble.
Thank you. That's what it was called, Mumble. And people really didn't have the software and the technology and stuff like that back then, like as we do now, where it's convenient not to have it. But like he was going in with the characters, I like that because when typing it out, I don't know, it feels like it's coming from your heart or something like that, and
Yeah.
it has that more meaning than just talking over Discord. Yeah,
And the
anyone
fact
can-
you're in game, yeah.
yeah. See, and I'm
can
not
see
even
that.
an RPer, and I can kind of understand that because it's like telling a story. It's like you're writing out a story, and it's almost like being a bard almost, and you're just writing it out as you go. And I agree with what he said. I mean,
Yeah.
the character limit I think would be nice. It'd be a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I'm not much of an RPer myself, so I usually don't type out that much in chat. But yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. So as far as that goes, then, so beyond RP, beyond the social aspects in the game, what are the things that you think that Ash is going to basically do right, and what do you think that they need to avoid to be successful? You've already kind of talked about some of the pitfalls as far as taking on too much at once. Is there any recent games that you've seen really do that?
The only ones that I can think that come to mind for me is Star Wars: The Old Republic was one. WildStar was one, of course, because they weren't done, but EA and NCSoft, they pushed it. They just forcefully made them put the game out too soon when it wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And of course they can't point fingers, because if they point fingers, then that's mama and dada at the same time, and then they'll get in trouble. But here with Steven, I still think it could go in the same route, but without more devastation in the end, because right now of how much stuff is coming out for Ashes of Creation, everything from the nodes to the classes. I mean, 64 classes on top of nodes, on top of wanting to put C stuff in because of all the milestones we hit from the donations and the backers and everything like that for Kickstarter. I feel like, for me personally, they are going to be digging too big of a hole for launch date that they're trying to get. But they are meeting from what they're saying, they are meeting their milestones and further than what they were expecting, each time they come up with a milestone. But it still goes into it where, to avoid stuff like this, in my personal opinion, would to be do it in patches. Release the world, release the classes, release, we got months until we get a Metropolis. I mean, we got stuff to look forward to for months, maybe even a year. And then, but yet within the patches, bring out the C stuff, bring out, the other stuff that they have, that they want to include into the game. That way, once that comes out, maybe we're already at max level and we're still working on our node. Well, that still gives us something else to go work towards something else. I mean, I always like doing multiple things. I like having multiple goals, not just PvPing and, not just raiding and stuff like that. I want to go out there. I want to craft. I want to go out there. I want to explore the sea. I mean, but if they give it in patches and, it gives us something to look forward to and not having a dry spot. But, like I said, within the first few months to a year, I mean, we're not going to have any of that because we're still discovering the world. The world is still going to be changing around us. Like y'all were saying, it's a breathable, living world. And that is the craziest thing for an MMO is like, oh, hey, we build this here. Oh, hey, look, a stone giant pops out of a mountain because, we built it too close and he decides to start smacking our city. Oh, well, let's go take care of him. Or, whatever the case may be. Fighting with each other, the conflicts and stuff like that. But yet I would still do it in patches to give people something to look forward to.
Yeah, I can definitely see that being the case. Too much scope creep can definitely cause it to be like unfinished, The good thing is though that they've been in development now for about two years or so at this point. Before they actually came to Kickstarter, they were in development for a year before that, and then it's been a year since Kickstarter. Now it's been a couple months since then. They also just hit, I think, 100 employees and are hiring 20 more. So I think they can definitely accomplish it, but it will be tight. We probably actually won't see the game launched until probably like December 2019 or maybe Q1 2020.
I'm thinking Q4 2020, honestly.
It's possible, yeah. Praying it won't be the case. Cross my fingers.
Oh yeah. I'm hoping for that too, because the only thing I got right now, well, once I get my computer in, is World of Warcraft and League of Legends. Yes, whoever watches this, I'm that guy. Sorry, but I mean that's all I got.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing else out there. I'm not playing Bless. I'm not playing these other games. These don't interest me. The only thing that the last time I had this fanboyism was for WildStar. And unfortunately, that game flopped because it just wasn't finished. And I don't want that to happen here. And that's why, I have high standards.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. Kai, you've been a little bit quiet, man. What do you think?
I figured I'd wait and let everybody say what they wanted to say first, because I have, and some people have heard from me before, I've had quite a lot to say about Ashes of Creation, and quite a lot I haven't when it came to certain topics. But to start with, I'm not going to go over specific things previous games have gone wrong, previous companies. I'm just going to say 3 big overarching categories where they have tremendously failed. 1, company decisions. Like completely backwards decisions that made no sense and did the exact opposite of what the majority of the community would want to happen. 2, lack of communication. When they don't talk to us about these changes, when they don't bring up what they're doing, when they don't try to give us a plan of what's occurring, when they leave us in the dark and let us try to figure out what's going on and let people's imaginations run wild.
Mm-hmm.
3, lack of responsibility. When they mess up and they don't own up to it, or they blame someone else, or they fire someone else saying it was entirely their fault when they were just some lowly programmer who was just trying to do his job. Like it's these three big things that have always made games fail. And when it comes to Ashes, the biggest things I'm concerned about is 1, the combat. I feel like Steven thinks he has to try to revolutionize combat as of Creation. I feel like he thinks he has to do something new, and I don't feel like he needs to, because we've had multiple good combat systems out throughout the year that have been fun, that have been exciting, that have been pulling people in. Yes, something new will draw people in. That's something new always draws people in. But if they don't do it right and the combat fails, even if the game is completely gorgeous and beautiful, if the combat's just not there, that's going to be a huge population that are gone instantly. Like BDO, for example. BDO is a amazingly fun combat game to most people. Some people would disagree with that, but BDO's combat is what kept so many people playing for well over a year, for longer than a year, because the combat was so much fun. They didn't care about how crap the rest of the game was. They played it just for the combat alone, and that's what really brought BDO to the highlight of its power that it was in for NA and EU. It's combat alone. And I think if Steven tries to push the combat too hard to be something new, rather than utilizing old systems, building up on them over time, I just don't think it's going to work out very well for them. And the second big thing I'm concerned about mainly is I've been with the Ashes community for probably about a year or so. I've been watching their progress. I've been watching what they've been doing, and the closer and closer we get to Alpha 1, the more boastful it seems like they're getting. And I get it. You have a product coming out. You're getting there. You need to beat your chest. You need to build your game. But you are an unproven company still. You haven't done anything yet. You are so confident of your game's success that to the point it's kind of intimidating me, because everyone is always that confident about their game's success. Everyone always is. And almost everyone has failed over the last 5 years of games releasing. They've always disappointed, or they've always been showing us stuff when the game comes out and it's nothing like what it looks like. It's nothing like what it feels like. It just doesn't feel right, doesn't act right, doesn't look right. And I think they need to stay somewhat humble until we get to play something of a sort, tear it apart, and see how they react to it. And if they react beautifully, and if they take responsibility for whatever they screwed up, whatever they haven't failed, and they fix it, they become like Beta 1, for example. Let's say we tore apart Alpha 1. I mean, they fixed it come Alpha 2, and they have every right to boast about what they fixed by that point, I feel. But I think the arrogance might end up being the downfall, effectively.
I would
Well,
definitely
about to say Sinbad should know about the combat. You got to test it, didn't you?
yeah, both at PAX and then just otherwise, can't go into a lot of detail with it, but I can talk about what's been shown in the Alpha Zero live streams that they've done, and just my experience from PAX.
Quickly, but isn't that current combat just a placeholder for the real thing, though?
It is. And so from what they've said, though, that they're planning to do is a hybrid between tap target and action combat, right? Right. Which there's already a tap target system that's a hybrid, which is Guild Wars 2. You do have that already in place. It's not like it's a brand new system. It's something that they can draw from and basically polish. And being that Stephen played Arcade for a long time, he's probably going to draw a lot from that game for when he's playing combat. Maybe add a little bit more in when it comes to like dodging or aiming your attacks, things like that. But I don't think it's going to be something too revolutionary where it's basically not fun, or it doesn't get pulled off. As far as the arrogance part, I wouldn't say they're being arrogant. I think that they're definitely confident of themselves.
They're keeping morale up.
Yeah, the fact is that they don't have a huge budget for marketing. On top of that, I mean, they are truly a self-funded, indie studio. And so for them, they have to kind of keep that hype there to a certain extent while they're making the game, because that's really how they can get their marketing out there. That word of mouth, that people telling their friends like, hey, this is the game that's coming out. This is why I'm excited for it, that kind of thing. Without that, unfortunately, they wouldn't have that big of a following. They wouldn't have the 100,000 plus people on their on their website right now, signed in, logged into their forums, and they wouldn't have 10,000 people on Discord. They have to have that hype, that marketing there, that kind of like a little bit of vibrato, to basically keep them going, keep them keep people interested. And then last point, as far as the alphas go, so for alpha 1, alpha 2, people need to understand these are not the finished products. These are not the
alpha.
Yeah, exactly. Like too many times I've seen on YouTube comments, the combat looks like shit. This looks like shit. It looks like it's not finished.
Because it's not. Please read the description if you don't want to listen.
Oh, but you're saying it's an alpha, so we can't criticize them. Like, no, really, it's an alpha. It means that it's a true alpha, that they're literally building the game from the beginning to the end. This is one of the portions of that.
Hard to criticize, honestly.
Yeah.
Not to say, hey, it looks like shit, but be like, oh, hey, you know what? This might look better this way. Give criticism in a positive feedback, not a negative feedback. And then
exactly.
They learn from the community. That's what, going back in what you were saying, how companies ignore the community and they just do what they want. Steven's been listening. But like I was going into earlier, he doesn't need to listen 100%. But he is listening. He is putting in a lot of consideration to what people want. Of course, he's not going to make everyone happy, but that is awesome. So if anyone's going to criticize anything, it needs to be in a positive way so they can hopefully see what they would like to see in the game.
Yeah, and I think that's important to remember that, when we get into Alpha 1, the 10,000 people that are going to be playing it, because I think they're getting pretty close to that cap at this point. Those people are going to be logging into pretty much an empty world. The world's going to be pretty much barren. You're not going to be able to really do anything. There's not going to be any kind of crafting systems yet. There's not going to be anything really in the game that's substantial. And then the combat itself is going to be super rough. People need to have that mindset of this is meant to help them build it into something that's good, because that's what it's there for. So even if like, let's say the alpha is beyond rough, people can't log in at all, there's like months where there's like no one able to even get on the server, that's still very helpful for them as a game company, because then they can actually go into their netcode and see, okay, these issues are here, there's like a memory leak here, we can fix this before actual launch, and if they need to, they can push out launch. But that's what this whole phase is for.
Right. And see, like when I did alpha testing for WildStar, I was just one of those lucky few, because I'm not saying this is what Ashes is doing, but they didn't have that buy-in. where, you know, hey, I'm going to spend this amount of money, but, you know, I want the cosmetics too, but I also get into the Alpha 1, Alpha 2, so on and so forth. I was just one of those lucky few that got in. And, you know, when I was testing it and stuff like that, there was 2 weeks, the servers kept crashing. We would log in, we would see our character, we would hit enter, and then they would go, bloop, and it just wouldn't work anymore. But that helps them understand, going, okay, so this isn't working, we need to fix this. After 2 weeks, they finally fixed it. Yeah, people were mad, but at the same time, who cares? Because that's really what alpha testing is to get out the bugs. The beta is to help, you know, finish polishing, you know, help me be like, okay, maybe little changes here and there, but the alpha testing is really where it matters.
100%.
I think too, if I may draw it back a little bit, just to continue a slight bit of that debate of the arrogance I brought up, that was probably the wrong word to use in this case. But what I was trying to allude to was what got me. I didn't know anything about asset creation when the game first came out. I had my friends talking about it, but I didn't know anything about it. And the Kickstarter was out at this time. The Kickstarter was going, and I watched the video for it. I'm sure both of you guys have seen the video, the Kickstarter asset creation video. When they gave us a beautiful world. They gave us a beautiful goal, a beautiful plan. And they said they were adamant that they were going to achieve this goal, that they were going to try to give us what they said was in this game, to give us these kind of concepts, the node system, the way the color was going to work, the way they wanted the game to feel, and how Steven talked about experiences in ArcAge and how he grew to hate pay to win because of it, and how he wants to give us a game that he could be proud of and we could be proud to play. And just it wasn't puffing up a chest. It wasn't talking about how their games could be the greatest thing that was ever made. It was simply talking about what they want to happen, what they're going to make to happen, and why they want to do it. And that simple, quiet courage, in my opinion, was what drew in thousands of us to support asset creation. It drew me in instantly. And I had been burned several times by this point. I was very skeptical, but I saw in that a certain quiet determination, a certain fire, not a raging flame, but a fire. You know, that persevering spark that you need, that persevering flame that you need for the next couple of years to make this thing a reality. And I feel like their persevering flame is turning into a huge bonfire of bravado and saying their game's going to be amazing, it's the best thing ever made, that they're going to make MMOs great again. And I think that humbleness, that sin will act, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to give you. This is how we're going to give you it. I think that's what drew in the thousands of players that we saw, and will continue drawing in more and more players by other people talking about it, rather than having Intrepid Studios talking about it, you know?
I can see that. The one thing I'd have to say is, like, you know, during this kind of like downtime, you know, they have to have that keep going in some way, right? That's true. That reason why they have, you know, that a little bit more swagger at this point, I would say, you know, that kind of like, you know, tip the hat to like Bless, you know, that they did, you know, the other couple of weeks ago, right, when Bless's servers failed, is because they're, you know, they don't really have anything at this point to be able to show us, right? And not really. Like, even the last podcast was just environment, you know, with some houses put in it, is because they're still at that really early stage of development, to where they can't really show off anything that's super exciting yet. But at the same time, you know, that talking about it, that's showing that they're excited about it, they're showing that they're still confident in it, that helps bring in more people, which they do need right now. You know, this company, since it is self-funded, they have to have that revenue coming in to help them keep going. You know, obviously the game is already paid for at this point, but, you know, things get slowed down. You know, like, you know, there may be a time where they hire too many people at once, you know, for example, and they have a tight budget for that month. You know, there might be little pitfalls here and there, monetary wise, that they need that revenue coming in for to help them, you know, get past. You know, all that being said, though, like, I do agree with you that, you know, that quiet, you know, kind of like, I'm going to be the best, you know, I'm going to work harder and make this game better than anyone else. I think that is what drew in a lot of people, and I think that is important to keep that humility to an extent. But I don't fault them for, you know, for kind of shouting about how, you know, what they're making, because they are making something awesome and they are hitting their goals, and that's something to be excited about.
What you do.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you what really drew me in. I came across it, and I think it was maybe 2 weeks after the Kickstarter ended. I literally was sitting at work, just bored out of my mind, going, what am I going to do when I get home? My family's going to be asleep. So, I mean, all I got to myself is video games. So I was like, man, I'm so sick of World of Warcraft. I'm so sick of League of Legends. I'm sick of all this normal stuff I'm doing on a normal basis. And, I'm not running a D&D group at the time because, just work and everything. And I just felt like it fell in my lap. It was like top MMOs and then Ashes of Creation, #1. And I was like, I kind of skipped it and I was like, all right, whatever. And then I kept looking at other ones, looking at pictures and stuff like that. And then I went to a different website. And #1, Ashes of Creation. I was like, all right, hold up. And I clicked on it. And then I started reading into it, looking at it, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I didn't really keep up to date on it at that time. I was like, all right, cool. You know what? I'll keep an eye on it, favorite it, just kind of keep my tabs on it and see how it does over the course period of time. And then it was right before they announced the class system. And when I started looking at the live streams and stuff like that, the combat, it looked clunky, but it looked basic and fun to me. And then, looking at the environment and then actually watching the node, the two-part node videos, that's what drew me in. Now I think about it, that is actually what drew me in fully at that point. And then once I saw the 64 classes, the next month, I was just like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Nodes part 3 when?
Yeah, we'll get that beta 1.
I'm not gonna get that alpha 2, man.
Steven, if you watch this, please give it to us already. Jesus.
The nodes.
Yes, but
it's like Half-Life 3 all over again, guys. I swear.
Right?
That game doesn't exist. It's a myth. It's never coming out. But going into it, they're bringing so much to the table, and they have to be a little cocky. They have to be proud. They have to do these things to show this is who we are. But yet, if you ever watch the live streams or watch the PAX, where everyone's at PAX and stuff like that, and then Sinbad can probably verify this because he was there. He's talked to Steven, he's met him and stuff like that. They're respectful. They're nice people. They, they're not like, yes, you're another person. Yes, whatever. You're a number. Move along, type of thing.
Yeah.
They have this, this spunk to them, and it gives off a very good vibe, and that's what also drew me in. It was Jeffrey's and Steven's personality, and I was like, man, the CEO is coming out, even though he's funding it himself, but he's coming out and talking to us, and he lets something slip, and then Jeffrey's just staring at him, and then he just looks at him. He's like, "Oh, oops, did I say something?" And Jeffrey's like, "Yeah, don't." But they're quirky, they're funny, and their team just seems like it's a lot of fun. Like everyone wants to be there, and that's probably why they're so far ahead on their milestones, is because they're enjoying each other. And that's a big part of working as a group, as a company, the people who you work with makes the team just better, well-rounded, and y'all achieve goals faster. Even from a military standpoint, when I was in the military, the platoon I was with, if you didn't like your sergeant, or if you didn't like your major, or whatever the case may be, you just really didn't care still. But yet you respected them, so you still did your job.
Yeah.
But once you were with the people that you could call your brother or your sister, whatever the case may be, you always had each other's backs, and that's how it feels here. And I think it's going to go great for them. I really do. But they need to pace themselves.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, guys, it's about time to wrap this up. Let's do closing thoughts. So, Kai, if you want to go first, what's your closing thoughts? Just a quick summary of what you hope to see from Ashes, what they need to avoid doing to not fail, and then also just your last thoughts on this experiment that they're doing.
So to start with, I have been skeptical and somewhat to the point of negative about Intrepid Studios and Active Creation on the stream, but that is not because I want to see the game fail or I dislike the game. I am very much for the game, but I'm also very much afraid of being burned again and dedicating years of my life watching a game that's going to amount to nothing. And that's why I'm so skeptical of the game. I'm so critical of the game because I want to see it succeed in the best ways possible. That might translate to me wanting to see it in my vision, but honestly, it's not. I just want to see it be a good game more than anything else.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful for the game because I want it to be that game I can dedicate years into again. I miss that feeling. I miss being able to want to do things, to want to spend time with people, to want to actually take part in the game more than just PvP. I love PvP. I will always be a PvPer. But every MMO I've been playing lately just doesn't pull me in with anything else. Everything else is a grind. Everything else is boring. I don't see an incentive to do much else in the game. I've never liked crafting. I want to try to get into crafting. And I can see Active Creation at least trying to do this for me, to make it so I can sit around and play tavern games for 6 hours, to make it so I can go and hang out with my friends and play around with my freehold and design and customize and actually want to do that. And my biggest fears with it are the fact that hopefully that they can deliver what they promised, and that if they are struggling to deliver what they promised, they can own up to it. And they can accept when they've possibly made a mistake or when they've screwed up, and respond to the community in a positive way rather than putting the blame on someone else like every other company out there has done. And I guess my closing thoughts on the matter is that, like, Steven, Jeffrey, Bacon, we love you. If you guys decide to watch this, honestly, talk to us, communicate with us. If there's a problem, bring it up. We're not going to dislike you for it. But if it's a problem and it continues to become a serious problem further down the line to the point that we're losing content, we're losing stuff you promised, or there's going to be serious delays, it's going to be far worse of an impact further down the line if this ever happens. It's going to be far worse repercussions. Like, just communicate with us, continue communicating with us. We're your best friends, we're your best critics, we're your best followers, but we are the people behind your game 100% until the end.
All right, Doomfett, your turn, man.
First, I'm going to get a shirt made in Steven We Trust. But all jokes aside, no, I just want to, they just need to keep up the work. Don't lose that spunk that they have, don't lose that groove. But, just like I said, pace each other. They need to pace each other, make sure no one's like overstepping it. They don't overstep themselves where, they have too much on their plate and, they just dig a hole and they can't get out. And, just really focus on, the community. I mean, but like I was saying earlier, just to an extent where they feel involved, and it's all the interaction. People want to know what's going on. People also want their 2 cents in now these days. Everyone wants to say something, but is it right for them to say? I mean, is what they're saying right? Not necessarily, but they still want to be heard. So I mean, just to put things into consideration like they are doing, they just need to keep that up. And just please for the love of God, let me see the necromancer.
All right. So
Rogue, please too.
for myself, the main thing I've really kind of taken away from this, from just having met, Steven, met Bacon, met Jeffrey in real life, talked with the lead artists, lead designers. When it comes down to it, these guys are passionate about the game that they're making. Steven, he's making a game that's for himself. He's wanting to make something that he will enjoy. It's like that, that friend is like, hey, I could do this better than, these guys over at Blue Hope Balls Entertainment. That's what he's doing. He's creating his dream. And just talking to him, you get to see that passion. You get to realize that he's actually genuine about that he's putting his money where it matters. Like, he's actually putting pretty much his net worth on the line to make this game happen. This is something that he's funded himself from the beginning. I think he said he put $36 million into this. The cherry on top was the Kickstarter, but he's still being very, very conscious of our money. He even said on the Kickstarter that if this fails, if he doesn't create it, he's going to personally refund everyone that backed it back. this is something that I haven't seen from a developer in many, many years. Not since like the early days of Bethesda, not since the early days of video games. And that's why I'm excited for this. I think the things that they do need to avoid is taking on too much at once. That's something that I can see them doing. I think that they need to, listen to the community as well when it comes to things that we're giving as far as helpful critiques, which I think they already do a really good job of listening to us and listening to our feedback. I know Steven's online in the Discord almost all the time. He's in Reddit more than what's healthy. For the matter is that when it comes to this game, I really do hope that they succeed. I really hope that they create something that we can play for the next 20 years, because I want to put my life into this. I want to waste my life away in this game, because to me, this is hope. This is something that I haven't felt excited about before for many, many years, and it's beyond time that we had something that we could hope in, and that's what this game is to me. All right, guys. So what we're going to do now is just going to kind of say who we are. So obviously this is the Ember podcast. Like I said, we had Doomfett online here, Kai Sunstren online. Kai, where can we find you at in the community?
I am from Envious, which is Drax's guild. I'm Kaiser's Trin. I'm pretty much anything you want to look through. Steam. I'm gonna have a Twitch profile with it. I haven't started Twitch streaming. Just talk to Drax if you want to get a hold of me as well. And come say hi. Come talk to me if you have any questions. If you want to discuss asset creation, I've always got an open door. And I hope you guys enjoyed.
All right, Doomfett, where can we find you in the community, man?
All right, guys. I am Doomfett, as you can see. Doom, everything about Doom. But anyways, I'm like he said, I'm part of the Embers Guild. You can follow me. You can find me in the Ashes of Creation Discord. I'll be streaming again soon. My computer is being built as we speak, so I'm not streaming right now or doing anything right now. Just kind of lowballing it. But other than that, once everything is taken care of, I'll be streaming again, and just look for my name, Doomfett, in the streaming Twitch. You'll find me.
All right, guys, and I'm Sinbad. I'm the leader of Ember. We're an Ashes of Creation guild focused on content creation, PvX, so we're going to be focusing on the economy, raiding, PvP. We're going to be trying to do our best to be the best in this game we can be. We're going to leave our mark on this world, and that's something that if you want to join in on, we'd love to have you here. We're a semi-hardcore guild, so we do accept people that are casual, hardcore, semi-hardcore. Come on board. We'll be right here to help you out. And we also make sure that our members do succeed in this game. So come check us out. You can visit us in our Discord. I'll have the links down below. And you can also visit us on our website, which we'll have up here soon, which will also be linking down below as well. Thank you guys very much for watching. We'll be releasing content on a regular schedule. Every upcoming Sunday, we'll be putting on a new episode. So feel free to stop by and take a look. Thank you guys very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and thank you again. Bye-bye.